A1.7, and we are solving multi-step inequalities. So that's sort of the next step. We just done equations. So we are going to jump in. Before I jump in, do you remember what this symbol stands for? That one's less than, so it looks like a smashed L. And this one is greater than. Now, if we put a little line underneath it, do you remember that it's less than or equal to? Greater than or equal to. If it's less than or greater than, it cannot equal, so we use that open circle. So I just want to throw that out as a quick reminder. But I'm going to say let's rewrite these problems underneath the number line. So it's 216 is greater than or equal to, and I guess when we rewrite it, would you guys probably distribute that first? I think you would. So what is negative 6 times 7? X. Negative 42, keep the X. And then negative 6 times negative 1? Positive 6. Okay, now there's nothing else on the left to clean up, nothing on the right. So if you want to draw your line, you can. And we're trying to get X by itself. So what should we get rid of first? Yep, so I'm going to get rid of addition or subtraction. So I get 210 is greater than or equal to negative 42x. Now it's negative 42 times x. So how do we get rid of that multiplication? The inverse of multiplication. We're going to divide by not just 42, but negative 42. So we're already jumping in the deep end here, guys. On the left, what is 210 divided by negative 42?
Negative 5.
Negative 5? Okay. On the right, the negatives, the 42s cancel. You're left with x. I paused before I put my sign in here. Does anybody remember? Normally you just bring the inequality down, but if you multiply or divide by a negative, do you remember the rule? You flip the inequality, yep. So in an inequality, it's important to keep what's on the left and what's on the right down on the right. And then only because I multiply or divide by a negative, I flip the sign. So multiply or divide by a negative, flip the sign, or technically the inequality sign. All right, that is a big rule to remember. It is easy to forget. Now, if this was an equal sign, we could have said, hey, x equals negative 5 and been done. So negative 5, the x drops down, but we flip the inequality. Now, I think that some of you would graph this no problem, but a lot of people see a less than sign. Read it from x. X is what? Greater than or equal to negative 5. So I am a big fan of rewriting this because the problem is we see the less than sign and we shade less than. But if I read it from x, x is greater than or equal to negative 5. Negative 5 is too small. Okay, open or close circle on that number line. Close because it can be equal. And then which way do we want to shade? If x is greater, that means it's getting bigger. So left or right?
Right.
To the right. All right, there you go. Final answer circled. I got my number line. Done. Okay. Next one, number 2. What would you like to do first? I think we should distribute this. Agreed? So it is going to be negative 5 times 6. What do we get?
Negative 30.
Negative 30. Keep the v. Negative 5 times 5 would be negative 25. And keep your less than negative 205. All right, once we get it cleaned up and there's nothing else that are like terms, we're going to go ahead and draw that line if it helps you. I'm trying to get v by itself, so what do you want to get rid of first? So add 25, okay. So I've got negative 30 is less than negative 205 plus 25. So I'm thinking it should be negative 180. Anybody agree with that? Oh, what'd I lose? I lost my v. Did you have the v there? Because I lost it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what? Divide both sides by? Negative 30. Okay, so you're telling me to divide by negative. So what do I need to remember?
Flip the sign.
Flip the sign. So v is what?
Greater than 60.
Greater than positive or negative 60? Positive 60. No, 6. Why am I listening to you?
James.
I know.
Really?
You silly goose. All right, zeros canceled. All right, how do we graph this? Open or close circle?
Open.
open on the 6, and then which way am I shading? To the left or to the right?
Right.
To the right. Now when you guys shade, make sure you can see it, and then make your arrow a little bigger and highlight that in, okay? All right, well, let's do one more, and then I'm going to have you try one, and we'll get back together on it. Look at number 3. I've got a lot more going on. Do you agree? All right, so one step at a time. I had someone tell me yesterday there's just so many numbers. You're not supposed to do it all at once. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute the -2, which gives me a -2 plus 12. Are you catching that sign change? So I found some people doing the sign and then forgetting the number. So negative times a negative, the number's 12, n. All right, I'm distributing not just a 4, but what? -4. Okay, so -4 times 3? -12, keep the n. -4 times 1? -4, still greater than or equal to -8. All right, here's where I think the line helps a little bit. If I'm not crossing over the line to solve it, I don't change the sign. And I had yesterday, and I'm not sure which class it was, I had someone who was moving everything. I think it was in my later class. They were like starting to move the 2 and move the 4, and they were doing all this extra work. Clean it up first so you have less moves. So when I say clean up first, what happens when I add 12n and -12n? Not even n. It's gone, isn't it? 12n minus 12n is gone. So what I'm left with when I went to add like terms is -2 minus 4, which is -6. Now, is -6 greater than or equal to -8? Is -6 greater than or equal to -8? Yeah, you got to think about your negatives. -6 is right here, and -8 is down here. Is -6 always going to be to the right greater than -8? So my variable canceled out, and I got a special case. If my statement is true, that means everything works. So all real solutions. Now, how would I graph that? Say it again. Yeah, I would color in both arrows and shade everything in between to show that this goes on forever. So that was a special case. Otherwise, we would have solved it and graphed. All right, with that in mind, go ahead and do 4. First thing you want to do is distribute and then clean up like terms, and then get it down to bare bones before you start solving. You're going to leave this -28 alone. I'm going to move through this a little bit faster since you guys have the work. We're going to distribute, and that's going to be 2x minus 6. And we're going to distribute again, so plus 20 minus 16x. Now I'm going to keep that -28, keep that greater than or equal to. I'm adding like terms, so I don't cross the line, I don't change a sign. So 2 minus 16 is going to be -14x. And then this -6 and positive 20 are going to be a positive 14. All right, are we good there? Then I'm going to start solving. Always find your x. That's what we're trying to isolate. So I'm then going to subtract 14, which ends up giving me a negative, I don't want to think that hard, 42. Is that right? Is anyone checking me? Okay. Still greater than or equal to?
Wait, where'd you get?
All right, well, did you agree with me cleaning up this side, the -14x and the positive 14? Does anybody agree with me? All right, then I had to get rid of the 14. Did you find what you did? So now I'm going to divide by -14. Now, one thing I saw a couple of you doing, you're writing the x. You're not dividing by x. So look at your paper. You should only have a -14 down here. I'm leaving x where it is, and then I'm dividing by -14 over here. Now, on the left, this cancels, and I get a positive 3, but I divided by negative, so flip your sign, and on the right, I get x. So the left stays as the number, the right had my x, and because I multiplied or divided by a negative, I flip my inequality. Now, I prefer, I could do this. I could put my closed circle at 3, and I can read x is greater than, but too many of us see the less than sign, or I think some elementary teachers would teach you guys, shade whichever way the arrow is pointing. Anyone ever tell you that? The problem is the arrow is pointing the wrong direction because of x. So I'm asking you to read it from x. X is greater than or equal to 3. Then I see, I am shading greater than. You don't want to read it as a less than sign. Okay, so if you forgot to flip the inequality, that's going to be something you have to remember. watch your signs. Are we good? Okay, the difference in 5 and 6 is we don't have distribution, but we have variables on both sides. So this is sort of a preference. What do you prefer? Are you a person who has to have a positive variable, or are you a person who doesn't care where your variable is, or you always want it on the left? So what would you like me to do first? I prefer to move the variables first. That's my preference because that's my focus. So I would take this negative 6a and I would add it over here. But what happens? We were canceling it and moving it here. It happens to cancel out, and I'm left with 2 is less than 1. So this is a special case because my variable canceled, right? Is 2 less than 1? Will 2 ever be less than 1? Okay, so this is never true. So I'm going to put a slash through it. It's not less than. So nothing works. We say what? No solutions. You could write it like that as the null set, or you could write out no solution. I'll take either. So that was another special case. All right, so let's jump over to 6. Same deal. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. And so this is your preference. You have 2 options. 1, you always have the variable on the left because then it's on the left, or you're a person who always wants a positive variable. So which one do you want, and where do you want me to move? Let's move the variable first. Tell me what you want me to do. Anybody? You want to move the negative 6v to the right or the negative 4v to the left?
Negative 4 to the left.
Okay, so we're going to add this over. So you have the variable now on the left, and it's okay with you that it's a negative. Someone else doesn't like the negative. So on the left is negative 2v plus 7 is less than 1. Okay, so now we're back to where we were. What should I do next? What do I want to do next? Here's my v. Get rid of the negative 2 and the 7. So what are we getting rid of? Minus 7, both sides. Negative 2v is less than negative 6. Then what? Divide by, and you're saying divide by a negative, right? So v stays. Then what do I have? V is... All right, we're going to flip the sign because you divided by negative. These negatives cancel, and I get v is greater than 3. All right, open or close circle?
Open. No. Yeah. Open.
Yeah, you're right, open. And then which way are we shading? Greater than 3.
Right.
Which one?
Right.
Greater than is going to go to the right. You are correct. Oh, and I should talk about this one over here. If you go back to number 5, if there's no solution, your number line should be blank. You don't put any dots on it, any circles. 2 is bigger than 1. It wasn't true, so this is blank. But if it's all real solutions, you have to show that. Okay, so can I give you a minute to start number 7 and 8, and then we'll go over them? We're going to distribute here, and that'd be 2 plus 7m is greater than or equal to 35 plus 40m. Give me a shout out if I screw something up. It is easy to make a simple math mistake. Then this is my choice. I'm going to bring the m over. It's going to be negative, but I'm going to bring that 40 over. But you might have done it the other way. And this would be 2 minus 33m is greater than or equal to 35. Now, if the m's on this side, I want to get rid of everything, so I'm going to get rid of the 2 first. And that'd be negative 33m is greater than or equal to 33. And at that point, then I want to break up my multiplication. I am dividing by a negative. I've run out of room. So this is gone. I have m. I need to flip my sign, and 33 divided by negative 33 is negative 1. Now, if you went the other way, you would have had 33 over here and a 33m over here. And one of them would be negative, but make sure you read it from the m. You might have negative 1 is greater than or equal to m. Either way we cut it, close circle, and if m is less than negative 1, you're going to shade to the left. So a couple things. One, did you remember to flip your sign if you divide by negative? Or if your m was on the other side, are you looking at it and shading it right? Okay, in number 8, your final answer should be x is less than or equal to negative 5. So let's distribute. That's going to be negative 16x minus 10 greater than or equal to 35 minus 7x. Okay, does anybody have a preference what you want me to do first here? Now, I have a habit of moving the x first because I think it's easier because then we say, okay, I move this here, I want to get rid of things. Some people are moving the numbers first and then they're sort of like, what do I do? No preferences?
I feel like they all do the x's first.
Okay, do you guys want me to move the negative 7x to the left or the negative 16x to the right? What did you do? You move the 7 over? Okay, now some people might not like that because then they have a negative x, but that's okay. So I end up with what?
Negative 16x.
But I added 7, so what I cleaned up to be?
Oh, I didn't do that.
You went negative 9x minus 10, so you moved your numbers first, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. So you're going to see the same numbers, but maybe on a different side or a different order. Now I'm going to add the 10 so I can get x by itself. And I get negative 9x is greater than or equal to 45. So because my 9's on the left, I'm dividing by a negative. So I keep my x.
X is greater than or equal to 5.
But I had to
David, stop.
flip my
That
sign.
is you. I haven't touched my.
So you got to flip your sign though. So I should have x is less than or equal to negative 5. Agreed? Open or close circle? Closed, and then shade to the left. All right. So nothing really big and new on these next couple. In number 9, you can see that there's nothing to distribute, but we do have like terms. So I'm going to put those together first. You don't cross the line, don't change the sign. So I have 7 plus what?
6m.
Well, 6m plus 1. So 7 plus 7m greater than 14. Okay, now I want to start moving things. So what do you want to move? Subtract the 7 from both sides. So 7m is greater than 7. Now what?
Divide.
Yeah, so this one's not bad. So m is greater than 1. Open or closed?
Open.
Open. And then which way are we shading? Which way? Read it. M is
All right.
greater, so I want to shade the greater numbers. All right, you go ahead and do this next one. I'm going to do it while you do it, but you can ignore me. So I added like terms. They didn't cancel. I got negative 4 and is less than 8. I'm dividing by negative, so are you going to remember to flip your sign? And we should get n is greater than negative 2. Anybody agree?
Yep.
Open or closed?
Open.
Open, and which way do we want to shade? N is greater, so you said?
Right.
To the right. Yep, you got it. Okay, then we get a little bit messy, don't we? Look at number 11 and 12. So in number 11, we have to do a good amount of cleanup. Do you agree? On the left is going to stay 11r minus 1. I'm doing this one step at a time. On the right, I'm going to distribute. So that's going to give me a 15r and a minus 6. Now, what about this minus and the 4r minus 5? Isn't that like a negative 1 there? So I'm going to distribute that, and it's going to be a negative 4r, and a negative times a negative is a positive 5. Okay, so the left is just staying as it is, 11r minus 1, still greater than or equal to, don't lose that sign. Let's add like terms. Don't cross the line, don't change the sign. 11r minus 6 plus 5, what do we get? Minus 1? Okay, now what should we do? Anyone see anything right here?
They're the same.
They're the same. 11r minus 1 will always be equal to 11r minus 1, and this says greater than or equal to. So I'm actually going to get all real solutions, but let's say we didn't catch that. If I move my r to one side, do you see that that cancels and I get negative 1 is greater than or equal to negative 1? And because it can be greater than or equal to, this will always be true. If I didn't have an equal to sign, it'd be false. So this would be all real solutions. You can't just leave that answer. You have to state all real solutions. And what's my number line look like? Everything should be shaded. All right, so what I would like you to do is I would like you to try these next couple and then come see one of us to check them. All right, so we're going to distribute this first. So this would be negative 48 minus 12b is greater than negative 8b. Distribute negative 8 minus 24b. Okay, so this is one of the things we were just talking about. I'm going to leave the negative 48 minus 12b alone, but when I go to add like terms, I don't change the sign. Oh, that might be another thing. I felt like, did you have the negative 24 here, or did you have a different number? I think you had 12. Yeah, it should be negative 24. So it'd be negative 8b and negative 24b would be negative 32b minus 8. And then it's your choice. I think I'm going to move the b over. I like to move the variable first by adding it. That was another mistake. We had someone that forgot to change the sign. It happens. That's gone. Make sure it really does cancel. And I get negative 48 plus what? 20? B is greater than negative 8. I'm trying to get b by itself, so I'm going to add 48. So make sure you're changing the sign when you cross the line. It should amount to 0. They should be opposite signs. I've got 20b is greater than 40, and my last step would be division. So that is where we were getting b is greater than 2. All right, that's going to be an open circle, and greater than 2 is going to shade everything to the right. Okay, in case you're interested in the next answer, it's x is less than or equal to v is less than or equal to negative 3. And then the last one ended up being no solution because it wasn't equal to. So I know you might not have gotten there, but those are the answers. So here I have negative 14v minus 21. Distribute again 7v plus 42. Okay, your choice. What do you want me to move? The negative 14 to the right or the 7 to the left? Do we have a preference? No one cares at this point? You want to add this to the right, it will make it positive, so that's fine. We just have to mess with it later. So that's gone. Negative 21 greater than or equal to 21v plus 42. If you had me move v to the right, then I would move the numbers to the left. Minus 42, minus 42. So I have negative 63 is greater than or equal to 21v. Now, some of you are comfortable doing this in your head, but if not, use your calculator. Divide by 21, divide by 21. Now, pay attention. On the left, I get negative 3. I did not divide by a negative, so I don't flip my sign. Are you catching that? This can be a negative. It's if I divide by a negative. And on the right is a v. Now, negative 3 is greater than or equal to v, but read it from v. V is less than or equal to negative 3. Open or close circle? Closed, and then which way do we shade? To the left. And that's why I prefer to rewrite it. Okay, now, number 14 ends up being, like I said, no solution. So don't lose that negative 2. We're going to distribute here, and it's going to be negative 14 and a negative 6p is less than, distribute, and it'd be negative 6p minus 18, and then tack on a plus 2. Then I'm going to add like terms. So if you don't cross the line, don't change the sign. You can move things around. I'll leave it as it is. Negative 16 minus 6p is less than, and then negative 6p stays, and I add this together and I get negative 16. Now, if you're looking at this, you see we have the exact same thing. Negative 6p and a negative 16. If we're not thinking about it, we might move the 6's with the p's over, but what happens is they cancel. And I get negative 16 is less than negative 16. Now, negative 16 equals it. It's never going to be less than. So this would be no solution, and you would leave the number line blank. If you would have solved it differently, and you would have moved the 16 first, you would have gotten negative 6p is less than negative 6p. And sometimes that can be a little confusing. Maybe you divided by negative 6. Any way you cut it, you get p is greater than p, and it's never going to be greater than itself. So this would also be no solution. So make sure you leave a blank number line.